Hey guys, what is up? This is Matthew Diaz, once again. Welcome back to another video game review. This time, it is going to be on Silent Hill F, the latest entry in the Silent Hill franchise where we play as Hinako, and in this game takes place in a Japanese setting with elements of, the original Silent Hill games, where we focus on her as her and her friends explore the world as haunting creatures start roaming the lands. And throughout the game, Hinako goes into various visions of her past, and throughout the game, she has to try and, try to face those fears and fighting against these creatures while also solving puzzles like you would in any other Silent Hill game, while we also uncover a lot more of the storyline as the game progresses, while also going up against really gruesome enemies that are just, really unsettling to look at. Now, Silent Hill 2 Remake could have been an absolute disaster because Silent Hill, it wasn't what it once was a long time ago. It used to be the horror franchise to rival Resident Evil until eventually Konami just gave up on it because a lot of their franchises have been dying out, especially since Hideo Kojima has been, they both departed, so. But they're doing different things now, but Konami has started slowly winning people over because they also did a remake of Metal Gear Solid 3 this year, which I heard was pretty good. So, it goes to show that they're slowly winning people back. And because this game was so good, the only logical step was to do more Silent Hill. And because Silent Hill 2 Remake was so good, they know that they can do more if they made another game. And lo and behold, they made a new entry in the series that wasn't a remake, but its own new game. And the fact that it was going to be taking on a much more different approach in terms of it feeling a little bit more like on the same sense as something like Fatal Frame or, a Japanese horror game, as well as making it feel like, it has elements of like a Korean drama you would see on Netflix or something, even though this game is taking place in Japan. But hey, I had hope for this game because, hey, like I mentioned before, the Silent Hill 2 remake was great. And could Konami do more with a new, fresh Silent Hill game that isn't a remake, but its own new thing? Well, in my opinion, yes, I definitely think so. I love the fact that Konami is trying to revive Silent Hill and doing it in a way that fans can appreciate, especially since one of the biggest things about Silent Hill was how it managed to be very psychological with its horror while not really focusing a lot on gameplay, but a lot more of that same tension that you would get in a classic horror game. And they definitely brought that here, having the same vibes as the Silent Hill 2 remake while also changing the gameplay up a little bit. I really like the world that it was going for this time around, really separating it apart from previous Silent Hill games while still having that same formula of puzzle solving and that same sense of claustrophobia, especially with all the misty areas surrounding the game. And this time around, it isn't too confusing to figure out where exactly you need to go. You always have your map with you, and it feels a lot less linear than the previous game, especially since in Silent Hill 2, you would be backtracking a lot. While you do backtrack in areas quite a few times, it's not to the point where it gets all around confusing, which is something that I really appreciated about this game. I also really like the main lead. I really enjoyed the story that this game was going for. The game has 2 difficulty options, plus another one if you do manage to beat the game on the hardest difficulty, at least as far as I know. But I played the game on story difficulty, and it was still a challenge. I died far more in this game than I did with Silent Hill 2. Hell, I didn't even die in Silent Hill 2 once, but whoo boy. Yeah, the reason why I died so many times is because they changed the gameplay up in a way that I wasn't expecting. And I will admit, the gameplay is probably one of the game's weaker elements, unfortunately, but we'll get into that later. What I think really works about this game is the setting and the appeal. What I really liked and missed about the Silent Hill franchise was its storylines. The second game has one of the best stories in any horror game ever. It was very simple, yet it was very intriguing. This one definitely has the same idea, while also having more of that same emotional impact as those previous entries did. I really cared for the main protagonist as well as what she was going through, especially since there's more to the storyline as it progresses, as sometimes it'll go from the real world to a much more different world once in a while. There will be some spoilers, so I am going to warn you in case you haven't played the game or haven't beaten the game yet, but yeah, I am definitely going to get into spoilers when it comes to the gameplay because, yeah, that's one of the things about this game that I feel like is kind of, well, again, I'll talk about I'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, in terms of the puzzles that the game goes for, there really isn't a whole lot that I was expecting. A lot of them can be kind of easy to figure out unless you have it on hard mode. But even then, the puzzles, they aren't really like super, like, I wouldn't say they're like bad or anything like that. I just don't really think they're as creative as they could have been. That's not to say that they're all bad. There are some that I thought were very unique and really has you thinking throughout the game. There are some times where you're going to have to explore different areas in order to get certain pieces, in order to unlock a certain door, like any other Silent Hill game. If you're not a fan of that, then you're probably not going to enjoy the game. But for someone who is a fan of both Resident Evil and Silent Hill, I didn't mind it all that much. I really enjoyed exploring. I really enjoyed the environments that the game was going for, especially with those creature designs. They are freaky. They are intimidating. They are grotesque. I absolutely loved it. You are going to be fighting most of the same enemies throughout the game. Even some of the mini bosses that you've encountered before. But throughout the game, it's going to focus more on your survival instincts rather than your fighting instincts. Because that's really what these games encourage you to do. Save up your weapons, save up your health, and try your best to make it out alive without having to fight. Because now we can talk about the gameplay. It is much different from Silent Hill 2. For one thing, you don't have guns. Instead, all you have is melee weapons. And I did mention the fact that, Silent Hill 2's gameplay when it comes to the melee combat isn't very good. Oh man, they tried going in a much more different way this time around. That's... okay, so they kind of have like a Souls-like formula in this game. Now, it's not an RPG or anything like that, but it does have sort of the same mechanics you would get in a Souls game. You have your stamina, which affects like how many hits you can do, and it takes forever for the stamina to regenerate once in a while. It affects your dodge, it affects your attacks. If you played a Souls-like game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But the way they handle it here, it just feels quite clunky. And it's something you're going to have to get used to because there is an enemy lurking in every single corner, some of them won't die, but your weapons are going to break very easily if you're not careful. And if you're not careful, you're also going to be eating up a lot of your health, like in terms of like what you can use to heal yourself. It's going to happen a lot in this game. However, you do get currencies that do help you like boost up your health or your stamina, and you also get like these charms that can also like affect some of your abilities to help you out. I didn't really see myself using them that much because I really cared about focusing on the story and trying to make it out alive rather than, just focusing on a good challenge, because that's all I really cared about, especially since, again, I have so many other games to play. But that's really one of the game's biggest weaknesses, is the gameplay. It oftentimes feels very clunky and repetitive, especially since, your weapons don't have very strong durability. It can definitely ruin a lot of the tension, but hey, it never ruined any of like, the horrific aspects of the game, because it's very cinematic, almost making you feel like you're watching like a foreign horror film. Something on the same lines as, I don't know, Wreck or something, or, those types of horror films. But I feel like that's definitely more the game's strengths. And even though the combat is the weakest part of the game, it's not unplayable. I was still able to get past, the more annoying sections of the game. Especially since, again, enemies, they come everywhere. But I was still invested with the storyline enough for me to want to, keep wanting to play the game in order to make it to the end. However, that's another thing we kind of need to talk about. Okay, so Silent Hill 2 is known for having multiple endings, okay? Now, the first time you play the game, or at least the first time I played the game, my first playthrough, I did not get the good ending. It just ends so abruptly, and apparently, you have to play the game multiple times in order to get the best ending. Kind of like Ghost and Goblins, only less difficult and less insulting too. But the thing about that is that while the game, it only took me like 7 hours to beat the story, I feel like that's kind of another thing too. Because the gameplay itself isn't as good as it should have been, it kind of hurts any sense of wanting to really replay the game despite how great the storyline is and the atmosphere that the game manages to bring in terms of Tor. But I just feel like in terms of this game, it doesn't really feel like, it really needs to go all out and just having to, force you to play it multiple times. I mean, hey, these games are known for having replayability, and who knows, maybe I might want to replay the game multiple times in order for me to like get the full ending. But because I'm so busy with other games, I don't really have the time for that right now. But hey, for players who do want to get the good ending, you definitely can if you want. And as far as I know, the true ending is really good and definitely makes it feel more worth it. But as it stands right now for me, I'm probably going to do that some other time. Because a lot of the times when it did come to the combat, it got so frustrating for me that sometimes I just need a break from it. It's definitely good in terms of its horror and its atmosphere and its storyline. It shows that Konami really wanted to bring this franchise back, and I'm happy that this franchise is back because I've missed this franchise and I'm glad to see them do other things with the franchise. And hey, it was a unique idea going for a much more different approach from the gameplay, but I would just prefer it if, it had guns or it had a better use of combat rather than just feeling like a Souls-like. But it's not enough to take away from the overall experience for me. And again, it does encourage multiple playthroughs, and maybe one of these days I will want to do those multiple playthroughs, but as it stands right now, I'm happy with just beating the game as of right now. Like, if I really wanted to look up the true ending, I would just look it up on YouTube, because I pretty much almost did everything else, except for the true final boss, of course. But, hey, other than that, it may be weak on the gameplay, but the rest of the game, I think, is absolutely spot on. In the end, guys, Silent Hill F, I still think, is definitely worth playing. At $70, it definitely is a little too much. The only time it's really worth it is if the gameplay changes. Like, if you play it again, just like in the Resident Evil 2 remake or something like that. I feel like it might be best to wait for a price drop if they do manage to drop the price, like if the game goes on sale. But that's not to say that it isn't worth playing. I feel like you should definitely play it if you love Silent Hill and you love good horror. Just don't expect anything big when it comes to the gameplay. But it still manages to bring in the fear and the tension that Silent Hill was known for. I'm glad to see a new entry in this franchise. I'm so happy to know that Silent Hill is back, and the fact that we're getting good entries again. And I'm just happy to see that Konami has been trying to bring some of its touch back after making multiple mistakes. And hey, I feel like this is a win. Konami has been succeeding with Silent Hill again, and they succeeded with the Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta Snake Eater, or whatever the name of that game is called. And Hideo Kojima succeeded with Death Stranding 2, which is one of the best games of the year, so I think it's a win-win this year for both Konami and Kojima. It may not work in a gameplay perspective, but for everything else, it definitely makes up for that, in my opinion. I'm just happy I got another game off the list before Ghost of Yotei comes out. Now, I'm just going to continue playing more Hades 2 until then, seeing how much progress I can make in that game before that game comes out. But hey, I'm glad I'm making progress with some of these big games coming out this year. So yeah, it gives me a little bit of time to relax until I gotta work on the next game. But yeah, I do recommend playing this one. Yeah, I'm so happy that Konami has been bringing Silent Hill back. I know there was a game that was free that was supposed to be awful. Silent Hill, like, I forgot what that other one was called. Like, the message or new, like, I don't know. It's available for free, and as far as I know, that wasn't very good. But hey, these games are, they're definitely worth playing. So hey, there's that. There's more good to new Silent Hill than bad. So yeah, but anyways, enough of the chit chat. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and maybe subscribe for more. You can also follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or maybe Blue Sky. Links are in the description. And I'll see you guys later. Word out.